recording started. For those of you who didn't hear this already, I do want you to have your schedules handy, and I want you to have your notebook handy. And I have three things that I am really, really excited to share with you. The first one, this wasn't on my initial agenda, but I was talking to a couple people. Grant Cardone announced the next speaker for the 10X conference, and I was in a conference call with some of the people attending. And I was reminded of a chapter from this book, The Millionaire Booklet, that I really wanted to share with you guys. I know a few months ago, back in September, we did an entire 4-week series on money and making money and building wealth. And that was something that you guys were really excited about. And I remember that one of the questions I asked for 3 consecutive weeks in a row was, do you believe it's possible to get rich quick? And it was very funny to see half of the group was saying yes, and half of the group was kind of either shaking their head no or flat out saying, no, I don't think that's possible, right? And I was reminded of this chapter in the book. So I want to start off by sharing this with you. It says, you can and should be a millionaire. You can be a billionaire, a deca-billionaire, or richer if you simply think bigger from the start and then hyper-focus and repeat the steps I lay out. Regardless of what others suggest, getting rich doesn't just happen, and it comes with lots of challenges. You will have to give up something, probably many things. The first thing you'll have to give up is your middle-class mind. The next thing you'll give up is what everyone else thinks is fun. For 25 years of my life, I paid the price. While others were traveling, taking holidays, playing golf, and going on adventures, I was either building financial success or preparing myself to do so. The first sign that you're on your way is when the people close to you start to question why you're working so hard. They'll say, we never see you anymore. What's happened to you? You never have time for us anymore, and on and on. When you start your wealth adventure, many will try to convince you it's not worth it. Some will tell you it's impossible. It is worth it. It is possible, and it is important. Your wealth adventure will be complicated by a new awareness that you're short on skills. Early on, I realized how little I knew about how to connect with people, network, communicate, build rapport, and how little confidence I had. I didn't know how to sell, market, promote, build value, negotiate, close deals, or follow up customers. I couldn't handle disappointment and rejection, and I wasn't even dealing with money yet. For the first time in my life, I started investing in myself. I committed to learning and studying because I didn't like to read. I even took courses on how to study that were amazing and allowed me to learn anything and like doing it. One of your early steps is learning how to increase your income, and then who's got your money. And this is where most people fail. I was spending 10 hours a day minimum at work, 6 days a week on these 2 simple things, and the rest of the time on self-improvement and building the skills I was deficient in. As I started having success using my new knowledge, I immediately experienced a renewed sense of confidence and belief in myself. For the first time in my life, I felt really, really good about myself. I started feeling confident with my abilities and became even more committed to success. Those around me became more critical of my new focus. This will happen to you, and you need to be ready for it. You are the only one who has changed, so expect this, because when you change, you may be a threat to them. I remember when I started working on myself and a girl I was dating said, "Don't change, I love you just the way you are." I thought to myself, this isn't about you. It's about me and what I want. My commitment to my self-improvement had become a threat to her unwillingness to self-improve. If you are truly committed to becoming a millionaire, you will at some point need to change your environment. And by that, I mean your friends and family. That doesn't mean you need to get rid of people. It just means you need to add new people. The old friends will just fall off as they lose interest in you. You'll be annoying to them. If you want to make it into the club of wealth, you must add new connections. And that means you need to reach up, not sideways and not down. If you don't change your surroundings, you will not make it. Make a list of people in your city that are super successful, on the move, who are interested in personal growth, active in charities, who invest time to improve the quality of their lives, and are not just complaining all the time. These are the people you should surround yourself with. I'm one of those people. My wife and kids and the people who work at my companies are all committed to improving themselves and helping others be the best they can be and achieve financial freedom. People committed to success want other people to be successful. People committed to the status quo want to be surrounded by the status quo. If you don't have the kinds of people around you that you want, go get them. One way to find the right people is to continue investing in yourself. Go to conferences and meetings and join mastermind groups. Don't spend time and money on things, toys, holidays, or moments. Invest in the surest investment of your life, you. When it comes to your self-improvement and education, spend whatever you must. If you must borrow money to make yourself better, do it. Remember, you're not just trying to pay the bills anymore. You are playing to become a millionaire, even super rich if you want. Find the technologies that can help you unleash the real potential in you. When you implement these steps, I can promise you a few things. 1, it will be harder than you think. 2, it will be easier than you think. 3, you will achieve way more than you imagined possible. In case you're wondering, can anyone get rich? I don't know if anyone can, but I doubt just anyone will pick up this book, and even fewer will keep it with them every day. I know you can make it if you simply do what's laid out here. Remember to keep the booklet in your possession until you reach your first million, and when you do, make me the first person you contact. All right, I freaking love that. It gets me fired up. And I hope that you enjoy that as well. So that, like I said, that wasn't initially on the agenda, but I was reminded of it, and I did want to share it. Let's go ahead and get right into the agenda. So I'm going to ask you, please, to pull out your schedules, whatever you are using for your schedule. I won't name names, but someone commented earlier, like, oh, I don't have a schedule. I know my schedule. And my answer to that was, if you know your schedule, if you know your schedule, it means you don't have a schedule, right? So pull out something. I don't care. I don't care if you have an app on your phone. I don't care if you have a note paper or if you have an actual planner. Doesn't matter. But you do want something that is labeled out with days and times. And by the way, sometimes when I do my planning, I don't use my planner until the schedule's finished. But I will make a sheet of paper kind of like this just to draw a rough template of what I'm doing. So let's start there. I want to start off, by the way, I was talking to Kevin earlier today, and I was talking about the agenda. He was like, oh, what are we doing tonight? And I was like, dude, I don't know. Maybe this is like a college class. When I was in college, I never actually looked at my syllabi after the first day of class. But just a reminder, I passed out a syllabus, and it's uploaded on the Leadership Academy website of exactly what we're covering every single day all the way through Christmas. So in case you've been wondering what we're covering or you're wondering what's coming next, it's all on the website, right? Or the syllabus that you have. But one of the things we're going to do tonight is design your plan for Thanksgiving break. I know many of you guys are either home right now as you're watching a recording or on the way home or coming home shortly. But I want to talk about 2 things. Number 1 is your plan for personal sales. And I was talking to Earl Kelly about this morning, and I imagine that there are 3 paths that you could choose to go down specifically for personal sales over this week. Number 1 is you can do nothing, right? I will tell you, this is the biggest shopping weekend of the year, so I don't know that I'd recommend doing nothing, but if you said, hey, I really don't want to sell anything, I wouldn't argue with you on this one. I pushed hard enough for the SLC push and the Olean push that I'm going to pick my battles, and I won't push again until we get to the winter break. Number 2, the second path is that you could want this to be a normal week, that you'd want to do 5, 7, 10 appointments, sell 500 to 1,000 around your family and friend commitments. Or the third path is that you could max out. You could do 10, 15, 20 appointments and sell $2,000 or $3,000. One thing that Earl mentioned when I was talking to him this morning, he said, one of the important things is just keeping in mind the flexibility. What flexibility is not waking up in the morning and deciding if you're going to work or not, right? It's not waking up one day and say, oh, I feel like having some appointments now, right? He said what flexibility is you write your own schedule. You pick for yourself when you're working, when you're not working, when you're off and when you're on, and then you work that schedule, right? So what he wanted us to do is to design a schedule tonight and not wait until after Thanksgiving when it's already kind of too late. So here's an example that Earl gave. If you wanted to do appointments, he was talking about making phone calls tomorrow and making calls on Wednesday. He recommended taking Thursday off for everybody, unless for whatever reason you don't celebrate Thanksgiving, but I don't think that's anyone on this call. And then he was recommending making calls on Friday morning and Saturday morning, doing 2 or 3 or 4 appointments, and then having the rest of the day with friends and family. Right. And obviously you could take your pick. If you wanted to do nothing with personal sales, great. I still want you to design a schedule, right? When you're doing what? If you want to do 5, 7, 10 appointments, great. If you want to do more like 10, 15, 20, great. But what I want to do is have you guys design a schedule first where you put in, and I'll give you guys a couple minutes to work on this, but put in when exactly you're hanging out with your family, right? Is your family just a Thursday evening deal and that's kind of it? Are you the kind of person where you're visiting 2 or 3 houses on Thanksgiving? Great. If you go Black Friday shopping at 5 a.m. with your mom, I don't know if anybody still does that, but if you do, right, put it in there. If you go to a Black Friday movie with your family, put it in there. Do what you need. But I want you guys to start by putting in all of your personal commitments for the weekend first. I'm going to pause the recording just so you're not staring at me sitting here in silence. What I am going to ask, though, is for everybody on teleconference, either send me a chat message or audibly say you're finished so that I know you're ready. Until then, I will pause the recording and give you guys whatever space and time you need. Forgive me for repeating myself. I'm now going to do it over again for the recording. But on Friday, I want to have all of you guys put in your schedule, unless you're physically out of the state, to come in on Black Friday from 9 a.m. to noon for a social blitz. We're going to learn and do one of the single most important programs for a manager. We're going to help you guys get credit for Jamaica, and I'm going to teach you a couple of new things that you haven't been exposed to yet that are going to be absolutely critical regardless of whether you're an assistant manager, sales manager, branch manager, district manager, whatever role you're playing next summer. Also, if I didn't mention already, we're going to help you max out your $3,000 credit for Jamaica over the holiday. Afterwards, I'd like to do a team reunion. So this is obviously invitation. I won't mandate that you come hang out with me. But after we finish working at noon, I'd like to take you guys out and do something fun. I don't know exactly what we're going to do yet. I haven't decided. Just FYI, if you guys have strong feelings about one thing or another, you're welcome to text me and give me input. But I'm kind of debating doing an escape room. I'm putting out potentially doing a going out to a restaurant and feeding you guys, kind of like I did with our Taste of Champions night over the summer. For those of you who came to that, we could go and shoot paintball guns. We could go karting. We could see a movie. There are some options I haven't picked yet. I want to do something that all of you guys would enjoy, not something we're like, I hate getting shot by paintballs. So I'm not committed to one thing or another yet. But either way, if you come hang out with us, I'd love to have you do a little team reunion and just spend some time with the team again, especially since we didn't have everybody in Ole, and this would be a good chance to reconnect for some of you. And I would imagine that if you come hang out with us, we would be done by 2:30. And after that, I want to go hang out with my side of the family. And I imagine that you guys wouldn't want to spend the entire day hanging out with me. So 9 to 12, I'd like to have everybody here. If you come out and do the team event, that would probably end at 2:30. But if you guys wouldn't mind, put that in your schedules unless you're physically out of the state. And then the only other work thing I wanted to propose, and again, this is invitation, not obligation, but I wanted to offer that we could promote some of you guys to be an assistant manager for a day. Okay, what that would look like if you wanted is we could schedule you a shift in the office where you could come in and run an interview and do a couple other manager duties. If you did that, that would be paid work. I would pay you for the hours that you did, and we could give you some time in the office as a manager. A couple of you have expressed interest in that, and over the winter holiday after finals, all of you will get a chance to do some manager duties. But I wanted to offer that if any of you guys would like to do a shift being an assistant manager for a day, that is a thing that I can offer. So 2 things really quick. I would like all of you to put the Black Friday 9 to 12 in your schedule, block off until 2:30 if you're on board to come hang out with us. And then if you're interested in AM for a day, just send me a text message and we can coordinate day and time for that with you. And then the last thing that should go in your schedule is put in your appointment times, right? Block them off with $ or whatever you use. What I would recommend is if you plan on doing 0 appointments, again, I'm not going to fight you on it. But if you want to have, I got you, Caleb, come back to you. If you want to have 5 or 7 or 10 appointments, my recommendation would be to put in 2 or 3 or 4 more $ than you actually want to book. If you guys get that, right? So if you want to book 5, I like having 7 or 8 slots in my schedule. And Kayla, what were you going to?
I was gonna say for the people that are just like against doing appointments for this week, that's fine. But like something that Kate talked about on our next level group call is it is Black Friday, so at least send out an email to your customers. Like that can't hurt anything. Worst comes like you get a sale. So
Cool. Yeah, I'm not going to push sales on this one. I'd recommend it, but yeah. I went to war with some of the crew over the Olean push, so I'm just not going to war on this one. I'd recommend it though. I'm just saying. But either way, right? If you want to do 5 appointments, I'd put in $7 or $8 sign slots. If you want to do 10, I'd put in $12 or $13 sign slots. And again, you can put them however you want it, right? So, and I'm just throwing out ideas. You can do this any way that you see fit. You could say Thursday, if you wanted to do 1 or 2 appointments, you could. I know I'm taking the full day off. I kind of encourage that. But I know Kevin, he's like, yeah, we don't really do anything until nighttime. So he's already booked 1 appointment for Thursday and he's trying to get a second one. I'm not encouraging that necessarily, but it's a thing. On Friday, it is a really good day. The honest truth is that back in the day, we used to go line up at stores. When I was in high school, my girlfriend really wanted to go shopping. So we lined up outside of Best Buy at 5:00 in the morning to wait our turn to get inside. And some of you guys have probably seen YouTube videos. If you haven't, by the way, don't do it right now, but look at YouTube, just Walmart Black Friday. It's a mess. But the honest truth is that with internet shopping, that's not even like really a thing like it used to be. Last year, I remember vividly, in-store sales on Black Friday were down dramatically, but the stores as a whole sold more than they had the previous year. So most of the sales happened online. And then the Saturday was even bigger than the Friday. The Sunday was bigger than the Saturday. Cyber Monday was bigger than all of it. And then it kept increasing. And I think every single day was previer than the previous day. I want to say up until December 12th. I could be wrong, but I know it was like this stretch where every day. Either way, all I'm saying is that people are mostly going to be home on Black Friday. So you can do whatever you want, right? If you want to put a movie in there, hanging out with your friends in there, great. But if you wanted to do a couple appointments, you could. Saturday is kind of nothing, Again, if you want to spend the entire day with your family, cool, right? If you want to do 2, 3, 4 appointments and then the rest of the day with your family, that's cool. Whatever. I'm just throwing out some ideas, right? The only other thing I want you to put in your schedule is that if you have appointments, make sure you put in an appropriate amount of time for making phone calls. All right, make sure you put in an appropriate amount of time for making phone calls. Just FYI, tomorrow evening, we're running our team meeting on Tuesday this week because of the Thanksgiving holiday and some of our people in the local team are traveling. Tuesday, we're doing a team meeting from 4 to 8 p.m. So if you wanted to join, by the way, you could teleconference in for that. I'm on board. But if you wanted to join us for that and make phone calls with the rest of the team, you certainly can, right? Wednesday would be a great time to make phone calls in the evening. And then Friday morning and Saturday morning would be a great time to make phone calls. And the honest truth is if you only need to book 5 or 6 appointments, you can probably get away with just having 2 or 3 hours worth of phone calls, right? If you're trying to book more like 10 or 12 or 15, I'd recommend giving yourself 2 or 3 separate phone times, whether you do one Tuesday or Wednesday evening and then another one Friday or Saturday morning. Either way, just make sure your schedule has an appropriate amount of time blocked off for calling to be able to book the appointments that you want to book. By the way, I do realize I'm speaking very vaguely, and that's on purpose. It's because all of you guys have a different schedule, so I don't want you to feel like you're pigeonholed into a specific thing. But I do want to paint a clear picture of what that would look like so that you can create yourself a schedule that you feel good about. So let me take a quick moment to pause and give you guys a chance to ask any questions that you might have before we move forward. Cool.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
What office is the meeting
at? Physically, it's going to be in my office. For Friday, I'd like you guys to come up here, and you and Becky and Grant could carpool together. But for the phone jam, you could just Zoom in for that one, the same as you're doing right now.
So the Friday from 9 to 12 is in the office in Arundel?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. Cool. Let me do this. I'm going to pause the recording again. The recording for all of you guys. Thank you for texting me your schedule there. The last thing I'll say schedule-wise, last two things I'll say schedule-wise. Number one is you do have to make sure that your actions line up with your goals, right? Again, if your goal is 0 appointments, you've got my support. I'm not going to war. But if you do want to book, just as an example, if you want to book 5 or 7 or 8 appointments, you do have to make enough phone calls to be able to book 5 appointments, right? You can't just do 1 and then hope that 1 will become 5 and then that you sell it out. That's not how life works, right? So just make sure that your actions are in line with your goals. I don't care if you make phone calls with us, right? Skyping into a phone jam with us. I don't care if you do it entirely on your own. I just care that whatever action you take is in line with the result that you want to create, right? And if at any point you need help, what I don't want is that you're like, man, I really want to do 5 appointments and then you don't feel like you're able to get it done or you miss whatever. And then you're just like, oh, it didn't happen, right? And then we get to the next week and it's like, oh, it fell apart. So if at any point you feel like you're stuck or you need help or you need an accountability buddy, let me know. I am glad to partner up and support you guys. But again, I know I pushed really, really hard for the Olean push. So I'm just not trying to pigeonhole any of you on this one. You know what I mean? The last thing, and Carissa requested a powwow. We can absolutely do that. The last thing I wanted to offer is I don't have any scheduled laser calls for this week. Like normally I have you guys sign up on the board. I know I did the same thing last week. I just figure that since you're all coming home and your schedules are different, right, between no school but family stuff for the majority of you, and I'm going to see most of you guys either Friday or at some point. So I didn't put a time on the board for laser calls. But the exact same thing that I did last week is open. If you want a laser call or if you're home and you'd like to meet in person, just let me know, right? Shoot me a text message and Carissa, I got yours, so I'll follow up after this. But if you would like to get a powwow or a call with me, just shoot me a text, let me know. I would be more than happy to do that with you. I didn't want to feel like you guys had to commit to a call with me and this all around the Thanksgiving holiday. I just wanted to give you some more freedom and flexibility there. Cool. So that said, that's everything I wanted to cover schedule-wise. Let me switch gears. I'm going to ask you to pull out your notebooks for this one. And I want to work on a skill with you that is going to help you guys help your reps. The goal, and if you guys remember, I've been saying this for a while now, but the goal is that our managers, especially our new branches and new district managers, set a new bar for what is good in the DC Metro division. We did a really nice job of that last year with Bryce and Kayla, and the goal is to take another increase forward. And for the people who are assistant managers, this is going to help you help your reps, both to perform at a higher level. And I will tell you this past summer, one of the stats that we measure, and I don't know if I've talked about this or not, so if I have, just forgive me and just, say I'm an old man and I tell the same stories over and over again and just humor me the same way you would your grandfather. It's fine. But if I haven't said this before, I genuinely don't know if I have or not. But last summer, one of the stats that we measures is called PPR. It's simply productivity per rep, or how much does your average rep sell, right? And you guys are not the average reps. That's why you're in Leadership Academy. But the average rep, right? If you add 10 people to the team, how much could you expect those people to sell? And this past summer, we had the highest PPR of my entire career in my office. And Kayla and Bryce had some of the highest PPRs across the entire DC metro area, not just competing with the other branches, but also competing with districts, which was freaking cool. And that made competition a ton of fun and all the stuff. And most of you guys were at our summer conferences, winning trophies and reaping the rewards from that. And I'll tell you, one of the things that we did much better last summer than we have in the past, but we still have a big opportunity to get better with, is helping reps get more people on their call list. Okay, so I want to walk you guys through this workshop. Okay, I was talking to Nick earlier, And I'm not calling you out, Nick, or throwing you under the bus, but he told me earlier, he's like, man, I want to do more appointments. I just don't have enough people to call. And I was like, you're really going to get a lot out of Leadership Academy. He goes, why? And I said, because we're talking about that. And this is going to help you, right? It's going to help you if you're trying to work for now, if you're trying to come back and push hard for the winter break and make some money over winter. I know many of you guys need to make some money over winter, but also win the trip to Jamaica. This is going to help you, and it's also going to help your peeps. So let's dive right in here. Number one thing you should be just aware of and prepared for is that your reps will constantly tell you they don't have anyone to call. Right, Kayla?
Yeah, that's so accurate.
Right. They will constantly tell you they're out of people. They don't have anyone left. And I firmly believe this. I don't have any numbers or research data to back me up, but I firmly believe that the number one reason that reps struggle with their sales, or the number one reason they struggle in their phone jams, is it's their list. It's not that they're lazy. It's not that they're demotivated. It's just that they don't have enough people to call. And rookie reps who are undeveloped, they just don't know how to handle it. They don't know how to come to their manager and say, I need help. They just suffer in silence until they make no money and quit. I do believe that firmly. Also, this is an area where as a manager, it's easy to let it slide. For sales reps, building their list is simple to do. It's not hard work. They're not going to break a sweat. They're not going to be sore in the morning because they got so many numbers on their list. But it is also easy to not do, right? Especially because for most of them, and again, a lot of you guys can relate to this from your own experience as a sales rep, myself included, by the way. But a lot of them, they're used to being an employee where they have to show up at a certain time, clock in, they have to leave at a certain time, clock out. They're told when they can take their break. And if they're not working, they're not working, right? So for a lot of them, we have our team meetings where they're forced to come to the office and make phone calls in the office, and there's a manager watching. We have division meetings and conferences where they have to go, right? And there's an agenda for them. But for the majority of your reps, the one area where we tell them to do it, we tell them they have to do it, we tell them how much to do it, but then they just have to do it on their own is making their call list. And a lot of them they don't know how yet to manage themselves. They don't know how yet to hold themselves accountable to getting it done. And so if they don't have a manager, you in this case, looking over their shoulder, they just don't get it done, right? And as a manager, it's easy for us to just assume that they've done it. And it's easy for us to just expect that, hey, I told them to do it, so therefore they're going to do it, right? And then we don't find out until it's too late, until it's after the phone gym is over and they haven't booked enough appointments. I made the mistake today, right? And we don't find out until after they haven't sold anything and they're not getting a very good paycheck, and then they're thinking about quitting. And then we realize, like, oh, you didn't work on your list. Shoot. Right? And then we're playing catch up. So this is a big one, a big area of opportunity, both for the reps and for the managers. I'll cover this more over winter break, but I'm implementing some new systems in my office that I will also share with you guys to implement in your offices this summer that are going to help the managers stay on top of people's call list much better than we did last year, which should move things forward for both the individual reps and also for the manager as well. But one thing I want to point out is, and again, almost every single one of you here, you were part of our push alliance, whether you did it for the SEC push or the SC2 push or the COC push or all of them, right? Some of you guys were all of them. But before every big push, we run a workshop on this to help you build up a big call list. And in many cases, we schedule reps to come in and work on this for hours. And I know in my office, and I think Kayla and Bryce probably did something that is at least similar, but in my office, we scheduled a 3-hour block where everybody came in and worked on their call list for 3 hours. And then some of our people came in for extra time on top of that. I remember vividly, Kayla, as a sales rep 2 summers ago, you came in, I forget how long you were here. I want to say at least 4 hours, maybe more. But I remember vividly, she sat in the middle room in the office and watched Disney movies. I want to say Little Mermaid, but that might have been before your time. Either way, I know
it wasn't Little Mermaid.
Finding Nemo. It was something underwater. Yeah, okay, it was something underwater. For me, that's Little Mermaid. Also, Finding Nemo is not Disney, but whatever. Anyway, but I remember Kayla came in and she was just watching Disney movies in the middle room and working on her call list. So this is something we do well over the pushes and usually less than well, right, the rest of the year. One thing I did this summer is I ran this workshop several times. I actually scheduled once a month to run this workshop throughout the entire summer. And then I also did it during pushes. And then I also did it whenever a rep asked me for help building their list. And I got to a point where I came up with a workshop that I run and I recorded it. So it got to a point where reps were asking me, like, can you run a workshop for me? And I was like, no, just watch my video. Right now, that was my 1.0 version of doing that. So I'm not going to send you guys the video. We're going to make a better one. Okay, we're going to make a better one. But here's what I would like to do to start is I want to brainstorm some ideas with you guys. And I also have a sheet of paper here because as good as I am at this, I expect that you guys are going to give me some ideas that I can incorporate into my next version of this workshop. So I'm going to ask you, brainstorm yourself first, jot down a few ideas, and then we'll share. But what have you done as a sales rep to build your list? What have you done as a rep to build your list? You can think back. Many of you guys have done this multiple times, but you can think back to when you were brand new, maybe in your first couple days on the job. For some of you guys, you may have worked really hard on this before you even started training. Some people, like Kayla, did the bare minimum or less than that, but some of you guys worked really hard on this. I told Kayla to bring 10 numbers to training, and she came in with 9, just to see how much I cared about the 10th one.
I still have my first promotion, so it's okay.
Found out I cared a lot. But either way, some of you guys worked really hard on this before you even started training. Some of you guys honestly waited until after your first weekend or after your fast start was over to really dig into this. Some of you guys worked really hard before some of the pushes to build up a big list. I want you to think about some of the things that you have done personally to build your own list. Next thing I want you to think about, every single one of you has felt like you've run out of people to call. By the way, every single one of you guys will feel again like you've run out of people to call. It's not a one and done deal. I have felt like I've run out of people to call 7 times that I can think of, which means probably more like 2 dozen. But I've definitely run out of people to call 7 times over and had to start over again, right? Actually, one time I genuinely ran out of people to call because I quit because I was an idiot. And I threw away everything Cutco related that I owned, including all of my customer list and my referrals, because I was an idiot. So I actually ran out of people once. The other times were just in my head. Anyway, you've run out of people before, you're going to run out again. That's okay. I want you to think about when that's happened to you, though, and when you've had to get really creative, like some of the kind of off the wall things that you've done to get more people. So think about that and journal a couple of things real quick. And then the last thing is I'd like you to think about, and if you can remember specifically like a time that you genuinely thought you were out of people to call and you went to your manager, I want you to genuinely think about how that felt. All right, what were some of the emotions and feelings that you had in that moment? And I want you to think about, what did your manager say or do that really helped you? I'll also invite you, if you want to think of some things that your manager said or did that did not really help you, that would be okay too, because you can learn from that experience as well. Cool. I am going to ask all of you guys to share anything that you have that you feel like can add value to the group. And I'm going to encourage all of you guys, if you hear something from someone else that resonates, I would encourage you to copy it down and come up with as many ideas as possible that could help yourselves and help your people that you're leading. So I'd like to have all of you guys share your stuff. Who wants to go first? Thank you. I think you guys just a little closer together just so we can see each other.
All right. Well, I don't.
Yeah, go ahead, Nick. What you got?
All right. So things that I've personally done is incentivize customers to give me more numbers. I've also considered people who I knew where they lived, but I didn't have their number. So I rang their doorbell and was like, hey, what's up? Things that my manager suggested for me to do after I was like, guess who has no more numbers to call? My old manager suggested that I do sticky notes.
Yeah.
And directories, which I've heard directories work very well. However, I've literally seen 0% success with every directory I've tried. So, but I'm sure it works. So yeah, that's me personally.
Cool. I appreciate that, Nick. Thank you for sharing. Who wants to go next?
Oh. White pages. So obviously, well, I'm not gonna say everyone knows how to use white pages, but also the other way to use it, like Nick said. So say you have people like in your neighborhood, but you don't like know their number. If you type in your address, like you can literally find them. Like you can literally find like your next door neighbor. So interesting.
By the way, one thing, if you don't mind, one thing Kayla did this summer that was awesome is she actually paid for a premium account. I think it was what, $40 for a month?
It's $20 for like 100 lookups and then something else for.
Yeah, so you can look up 100 numbers for $20, and then there's another level on top of that. I think $40 is the highest level. Either way, when Kayla was generous enough that at the beginning of summer, she was paying for an account for her office, and honestly, for baby sales reps who have sold nothing, it probably wouldn't be worth their money, right, to buy lookups. But for you guys, you're all at 20, 25, 30% at this point. It would probably be worth the money to spend 20 or $40 to look up some people on white pages. So I just wanted to mention that because that was something that Kayla did this summer that was very effective.
Yeah, anyway. Premium gives you the cell phone numbers, so most people don't answer their house phone. So
or have a
unless
house phone.
Unless they're like older people. But,
yeah.
Also, Yearbook, I use that to like find people on white pages. And then, I just asked customers for more referrals. Like when I ran out of numbers, I just like I asked all of them, but especially the people that bought a lot, I would just go back and ask them because the people that bought a lot are obviously going to be like give you higher quality referrals. I live in an apartment also, so like I went downstairs and talked to the people in my rental office, did some demos for them, got referrals from that. Person who sold me my car, my doctor, dentist, everybody. Just
if I can, let me cut it again. I was going to recommend that if someone else didn't say it.
Yeah.
Think about all of the people that you give your business to, right? I'll just tell you, in my territory, some of the best sales have been made to people's chiropractors. They literally go to the chiropractor, get an adjustment, book an appointment, and chiropractors in Anne Arundel County, they buy signature sets is what they do. I need to set up an appointment with my PT. I'm going to see her tomorrow and book an appointment for her and her husband because of this damn neck injury. I'm at least going to get a sale out of it, for God's sake. Sorry, I just got fired up for a second. Anyway, but anybody you give your business to, my wife has booked appointments with her nail technician. They don't need to be like doctors. And she sold Cutco to 3 different nail technicians in Anne Arundel County. Your dentist, your car mechanic, the person that you buy your computer stuff from, whatever it is you spend money on, the people that you buy from. So Kayla, I'm really glad you said that. I just wanted to really hit that point because it's a big one.
And then also Facebook, I just like found people that I didn't necessarily like I knew, but I didn't necessarily have their numbers. And then also a lot of you guys are in college or just getting to college. People like new people that I meet, I just ask them for, obviously not right off the back. I'm like, hey, what's your parents' number? No, like I build like some type of connection with them first, and then I go into that. And then also like if I'm, well, this is a random story, but like I was at Target one time and I was like talking to this lady, I don't even remember about what, but I built really good rapport with her and I just like asked her for her number and I booked a demo with her and she bought a essential set, so it was well worth my time and I got a lot of referrals from that. So don't be afraid to take a risk. I mean, worst thing she's gonna say is no, like I don't care, I'm not gonna see you again. So
actually on that point, I had a woman, I joked about it for a long time that she picked me up in the grocery store, but she didn't actually. She saw me shopping for groceries and decided to ask me if I had a financial advisor while I was like buying soup. And I was like, no, actually I don't. She goes, are you looking for one? I was like, actually I am. And so I ended up, I became a client of hers and she probably made, I'm going to guess between $8,000 and $10,000 just on the commissions from my investments that she was managing and I met her in the freaking grocery store buying soup. So I'm just backing you up on that one.
That was all.
Cool.
That was everything I had.
I appreciate that. For everybody on teleconference, I apologize that Kayla stole all the good ideas. Kidding. I'm sure that you guys have more stuff. I would love to hear what you got, especially if you have something that Kayla didn't mention. I know she covered a lot. And especially some of the more creative ideas that you guys have come up with. Would love to hear what you still have on your list. Also, note to self, next time, make Kayla go last.
I have a question for you, Kayla.
Yes.
Next time,
What
make Kayla
is
go last.
I've heard of white pages. I don't know what it is though, and I feel like
I'm just gonna change your life now because you don't know what pictures. That's another conversation for another time.
Yeah, it's a conversation for another time.
Yeah, I'll talk to you afterwards.
But we'll definitely introduce you to white pages for sure. It's a gold mine. Brandon or Will or Carissa or Becky, what do you guys have?
I can go.
Yeah, please. Please.
Kayla pretty much said a lot of mine, obviously, because she was my manager, so she said my ideas. But so I literally have taken my parents' phones and just through their phones, their email, because like if you recognize someone's names, you can just copy that email address and then email them yourself.
Yeah.
And then I haven't tried this, but I learned it at the at Olean, and I'm gonna try it during Thanksgiving and all of that stuff. So when I do appointments, I'm gonna introduce a cash drawing, and so for every 30 referrals that they give me, they'll get entered into it, and I'll do it. I haven't decided. It depends how many appointments I have booked, but $50 to $100, and I can tell them it's going to go on for 2 weeks, or I haven't decided the little details yet, but basically for every 30 people they give me, that's a chance for them to win $50 to $100. So like they're going to do it. So yeah, that's it.
Cool. I love that, Kayla. Carissa, thank you. I'm curious, when you run out of names before, I know Kayla, she walked you through some of the things as a manager. What were some of the more creative things that you came up with on your own?
Okay, so I know I got a lot of my numbers from my parents because my parents know a lot of people. So that was a lot of my numbers. And then I went to my mom's work and literally walked around and asked people for numbers because I've grown up with them. My mom has worked there since before I was born, so like I know all of them. Realtors, literally I have walked into their offices and just I've sold to them. And then they'll give me their clients' numbers too. I did that for Saks Realty. I don't know if you know what that is, but yeah, realtors are a big one. Oh, and I just emailed all my professors too. So,
Carissa, you had so much more to share than you actually shared it first.
I'm sorry. Yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
That's awesome. I love it. One question for you.
Okay.
Actually, no. Let me not make the same mistake twice. I want to hear what Becky and Brandon and Will have to say, and then I am going to come back and ask you a question.
Okay.
Well, I went on a radio show trying to sell, and I did what mostly Nick did, went through directory and I went on white pages all around my neighborhood and posted notes all around my neighborhood, and also took my mom's phone.
That's awesome. I love that. I'm going to come back and ask you about the radio show in a second. Becky or Will, what you got?
Well, I know towards the beginning when I started, I kind of went with my parents too, except I kind of just like took their phones and I like sent every single person their contacts myself. But besides that, I did go, once my list started getting shorter, I did go to Bryce, and he actually recommended me to the Nextdoor app that kind of shows you like all your neighbors and like everyone close by you. So I did find a few people through that, and it actually did help. So, and then I also did the post-it note thing. So
that's outstanding. Actually, Becky, maybe you can help me with this. I know of the Nextdoor app, and I've had some people be very successful with it, but it's not something I've used myself. So if you're on board, if you can help me figure out how to use it, that would be outstanding. And maybe you and I can come up with a script and a program specifically for that. Because I do think there's a lot of gold in there. I just haven't created a program for it yet.
Oh, yeah, totally.
I love that idea. By the way, if you're not familiar with the Nextdoor app, it's a thing of beauty, and you should just download the app and get familiar with it, because I have not yet. And we will come up with a program, but you don't need to wait for us. You can get started right away, because we've had people be very successful with it without having a program. Beautiful. And then Will, I'm interested for you. First off, I don't know when exactly you made your list. I don't know if you came up with a monster list prior to training or after your first day. I don't know when you did it, but obviously to have a $20,000 fast start, you had a pretty monster list. So would love to hear about some of the things that you did.
I really didn't do anything too creative. I think the most creative thing I did was I bribed my little sister for a few contacts in her phone. But other than that, I would sit down for about an hour and just write down names and numbers that I was at least familiar with in my yearbook and my directory.
Love it. Question for you then. First off, do you remember how many names you had on your list?
I have no idea. No.
Again,
I
it's been
had a lot of names.
It's been a while. Was it closer to 50, closer to 100, closer to 200, closer to 1,000?
It was probably a couple hundred.
Cool. So here's the question for you then. And again, if you don't know the exact answer, okay, just give me your best guess. Roughly how many hours did you spend working on it?
Probably about 6 to 7 hours.
Cool. I do think that is probably the biggest difference maker right there, is that most people just don't spend enough time on it. It's not that it's hard work, they just don't work hard enough at it. Good. Well, all of you guys, I really appreciate you sharing. I have a couple to input myself as well. But Brandon, let me ask you, the radio show, was that like Howard Stern on Sirius? Was it your local college radio station? What radio station were you on?
It was like this Facebook radio station, and my mom knew the person, and pretty much she got me in. It was called like Impact the World. It went okay. I didn't really get any sales out of it, but yeah.
Cool. That was your first ever shot at it, and you, if I had to guess, I'm not picking on you, but you probably just winged it and didn't really have a good approach. But if you could get on that radio station again, I could definitely help you come up with a pitch that would get you some deals. So I love that you did that and would absolutely love to explore doing something like that again. One thing that all of you guys might want to think about and add to your list is that if you know someone who either runs a blog or runs a podcast or has a radio show, something like that, if you know someone who does a lot of Facebook or YouTube, especially if they do like Facebook and YouTube lives, having you come on as a guest, right? Either a guest author for their blog or a guest to interview for their podcast or their YouTube or their Facebook, and being able, and you see this all the time, but being able to let them interview you and get what they want, and then being able to pitch your deal, right, at the end, I think would be absolutely amazing. And you guys probably know some people who do that stuff. Carissa, I wanted to ask you, you mentioned that you literally stole your parents' phone. Becky, you might be able to give some input here too, but I know some people are very good at that. Some people are very ineffective. I know for me, I'll be honest with you, when I was a baby rep, it was after my last day of training. It was my first day actually doing appointments. I tried to get my grandma, who raised me, she was like my mom, but I tried to get my grandma to give me her phone and let me steal her contacts, and she flat out refused and made me cry, which wasn't the shining star of my career, but that is real, happened. But anyway, so for the two of you ladies in particular, what were some of the things or tips that you could give to get parents on board with giving up all their contacts?
My parents and I are like best friends. I don't really care, so I can't really give input on this because I can literally read their messages if I want to. So
Nice. I appreciate that.
Mine, I kind of needed like a good reason behind it of like, why am I just taking your phone? So, I mean, I might have just caught it at a good moment because I knew after training I went home and mom was already home with her two girlfriends. So luckily she would like listen to people. So when I pitched it to her, like, oh, I just started this cool job, blah, blah. Her friends were kind of like backing me up in a way and saying like, oh yeah, you should totally support her, blah, blah. And then even them gave me a few more recommendations. So, which kind of led to my mom just passing over her phone anyway. So
Cool. I love that. I've heard this from other people too, and I can also put together some ideas specifically for the people whose parents are more like my grandma was, where they were like, nope. I remember last year specifically, we had a parent come as a guest speaker for an event. I forget whose mom it was, but she basically made an entire pitch for all the other parents, and her closing argument was, if you wouldn't recommend someone to do business with your own son or daughter, what does that say about you? And I was like, oh. But then like parents literally just handed phones to their kids in the meeting. It was amazing. So there's a science to that, more a science than an art. So I will work on cracking that up myself. I appreciate all of you guys sharing. Anybody else have any ideas that you want to throw in the pot?
So going back to white pages. So why are you laughing? Going back to white pages, if like say you had a customer that was like a really good customer, or you're like, oh, I like this neighborhood, I want to do more appointments in this neighborhood, like you can literally just type their address into white pages, and then there's a script, I don't remember what it says, John has it, you can ask him for
Oh,
it.
the secret thing.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
But yeah, like it's basically says like, oh, I saw your neighbor so and so, blah blah blah. So yeah.
If I can add some clarification to that one. You guys have all seen this, but sometimes when a home security system like ADT or whatever, they install a home security system, they'll put a sign in people's yard. They don't ask for permission. They just put a sign in your yard saying that they did it. If you get construction done on your house, I'm sure you guys have seen this, whether it's in your own home or your neighbors, but if a company comes and does work on your house, they will automatically put a sign in your yard saying that they're working on your house. We got, some of you guys have heard this story, but 2 years ago, we got a new sliding door for our balcony. It was on the back deck, so nobody in the front was seeing it, but the company put up one of their signs in the front of my lawn. And I took their sign out because I was salty that they didn't ask my permission. Also, I haven't given them a single referral, but if they'd asked my permission, they did good work, and I would tell a lot of people about them. I was just salty they did it without asking before they tore up my yard. It was, by the way, their sign wasn't like a little teeny sign. It was like this big effing wood post that I had to go back and repair the lawn. Still salty. Still not. It was so disrespectful. I'm not giving them referrals. Anyway, neither here nor there. Still salty, though. That needs to be known. My brother does it. He has a pest control company, and when they spray someone's yard, they'll put up a sign. Now, we're not putting up signs in people's yards, but the concept is similar, which is what I wanted to clarify. What you can do is if you get a customer who lives in a really good neighborhood. I was actually talking to my wife last night because we were driving through Connecticut, and my uncle's a doctor. He, big houses everywhere in his neighborhood. And there was this one really small house. It was only one floor, and it just didn't match any other house in the neighborhood. And it reminded me of this time I did an appointment in Silver Spring. And I remember vividly, it was mansions. Like every house it could house 35 people comfortably with their families. And then there was this one little teeny tiny house. And I was like, what is this little teeny tiny house doing here? It doesn't fit. And then as I went around the corner, I realized that what I thought was a small house was actually the garage. And I couldn't see the main house until I turned the corner. And I was like, oh, words. So anyway, this didn't exist back then. I was telling Carissa exactly what Kayla was talking about. I was like, I need to go back and figure out where that house was. Because what you can do is if you didn't get referred to all the neighbors, you can look up their neighbors on White Pages Premium, call them anyway. And it's similar to putting up a sign saying, hey, we're doing work. Call us if you want us to do work on your house, right? Similar, you can call the neighbors and say, hey, I did an appointment in your neighborhood. Can I come do an appointment for you too? And there's an approach for that. Don't just call those people without the script, because that one, you do need to be professional. But we have a script. So anyway, that is a thing. A couple others that I wanted to add to this, and you may want to jot down. I'd recommend jotting down. Number one is to find people who are well connected. They're called mavens. But they're the people that are always giving product recommendations like that. You should go to this restaurant. You should see this movie. You should get this thing. And they're not that common. Like, not everybody's a maven, but you all know at least a couple of them. My mother-in-law is one where she even texted me the other day. She goes, "Oh, guess what? You should buy this for your wife. I got one. She loved it. She would love to have one. It's going on sale at this store on this day. You should buy it for her." Right? Just like always recommending stuff, you know? And I knew that I could get her to recommend people. So I just sat down with her and I was like, "Hey, I need you to give me like a lot, not 5, not 10. I need a lot." And we just sat down at the dinner table and she wrote me a list of 50 people. And it wasn't difficult for her. I just had to get her committed to actually sitting down, because she would give me 1 or 2 anytime I asked, but I wanted 50, right? So that's one, is find the people who are well connected that can give you their network. Second one, Will mentioned bribery. Someone mentioned bribery. I think it was Will, but if it was okay. Either way, I'm a huge fan of bribery. I love bribery. Some of you guys have heard the story how I bribed my sister-in-law, right? She was 16 years old. I wanted all of her people, because she went to a massive high school. Like, her graduating class was almost 400 people, and she played 5 different sports, and she's active in a church group, right? And I remember vividly, and some of you guys have probably experienced this, I was asking her to give me people, and she was like, "Oh, I'll think about it. Oh, I'll get to it. Oh, well, I don't really know if they're going to be interested. I only want to get people who want." And you guys know the deal. I was like, "Get out of here. Give me the numbers," right? So ultimately, I had to bribe her. Now, I've seen people do different things. You can use money. One thing I've done in the past that's really good, especially if you're making 25 or 30%, is I give $1 a name, right? $1 for every name, but it has to be 50 names, right? So it's not like, "Oh, give me one name and I give you $1. What am I going to do with one name, right? I call it 50 for 50. So if you want to write that down, it's 50 for 50. And most people get pretty fired up about the prospect of $50. And I've had people write me a list of 50. You could do 25 for 25, doesn't matter. But if you're going to buy your leads, I recommend $1 per, but don't just get 1 or 2. You guys with me so far? And if you think about it, especially when you're at 25 or 30%, like, how much do you need to sell to make $50? Right? You don't need to know the number, but like, how much you need to sell to make $50? You could do that on 1, maybe 2 appointments. So if you got 50 leads, it's going to be profitable for you. That's the key, right? It doesn't take much to make this a profitable investment, right? If you don't want to do money, though, you don't have to. I've seen people like chauffeur someone around for a day, right? I've seen super competitive sports fans. Actually, some of you guys saw this at one of our summer conferences, where one of the Hall of Fame managers, Ryan Daverin, he's a huge Patriots fan, right? Earl Kelly is a huge Eagles fan. And they had a sales contest together. And because Ryan lost the sales contest, he had to wear an Eagles jersey. And some of you guys saw that, right? But you could definitely do something similar. I've seen people do other stuff. I've seen people like, sorry, I'm so sorry. I blanked for a second. Do other stuff. Just run with it, right? I've seen people clean someone's car. It doesn't matter. You could come up with something. For me, the big one the story that I tell that many of you guys have already heard is when I took my sister-in-law, who was 16 years old, and her little girlfriend prom dress shopping. It was like the worst 4 hours of my entire life, was two 16-year-old girls prom dress shopping, and then me. Hell was I going to do? And then they got froyo. Ugh, worst. But she gave me an entire basketball roster, like all of the moms for an entire basketball team, varsity, junior varsity, the bench, all of them. And I sold $10,000 to that roster. I made 30%. It was a $3,000 return on investment for 4 hours of misery. Yes, 10 out of 10 would do again. But anyway, so bribery can be money, can be something else. The last thing I want to give you, you can add to your arsenal here, is I've had a bunch of reps just go to their high school, right? Some of you have, some of you haven't, but if you haven't been back to your high school since you graduated, you need to just go, you check in with the guidance department, and you get a visitor's pass. All you do is tell them that you want to visit some of your old teachers, and they're like, "Oh yeah," and they just give you a visitor. No big deal, right? You bring your calendar with you or your planner, and you literally just go visit some of your favorite teachers. By the way, you can have as many favorite teachers as you want, right? But you visit some of your teachers. Most of them are super excited to see you. And if they're not teaching a class, they will stop what they're doing and talk to you. And the key is all you do is talk to them. Just, hey, how you doing? Blah, 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 right? Naturally, they will ask you about work and what you're doing. And then you're like, ooh, actually, and then you just do the phone script where you're not like, I sell knives. You interested in knives? Do you want to buy knives? Get out of here, right? The answer is no. Instead, it's like, hey, actually, I do product presentations. Actually, you wouldn't have to buy anything, and I get paid just for showing it. I'm trying to do 12 appointments. Can we do one? And again, just like in the phone script, if you make it about the knives, everyone's not interested. But if you make it about just doing it to get the appointment and you get paid regardless, everybody's on board. And that is when I saw a dude literally walk into his high school and leave 2 hours later with 12 appointments booked. Amazing. And then you get the referrals from them and you can take over the entire school. That's amazing. So anyway, those are some nuggets that I wanted to share. Here's a random thought. And this occurred to me as you guys were sharing ideas, and I just want to run it by you. I'm not committed one way or the other. But what if we made a montage video? Instead of me recording a video that you play for your team, instead of you creating your own video, which I did have on my list was for each of you to create your own video. What if at some point over the winter break, I interviewed you guys like a podcast or like a Facebook or a YouTube live. You gave some of your tips, and then I got it turned into a montage video where all of us are speakers, and then all of us would have that video to play for our teams over the course of the summer. What do you guys think about that?
I think it's a neat idea.
I would totally be for it. That's Becky.
That sounds cool.
How about this? I appreciate that it sounds cool. Is this something that you guys would be like, yeah, you can put my face on camera and I'd be willing to record like 2 minutes of video for this?
Yeah, I don't care.
Oh no, not right now. It look ugly.
I mean, that's accurate. We need to get you to clean the beard up a little bit, but after that, it'd be fine. Okay. No, okay. It is true. The beard's a little nappy, but that's all right. It's a quick fix. Carissa, Will, Becky, what do you guys think about that? The silence is making me nervous. Usually silence is acceptance, but right now I'm nervous. All right, we'll come back to it. I'll twist some arms if need be. Either way, here's my closing thought on this portion. Number one, I do like the idea of having a video because this is something, it is an intensive workshop. It even took us 45 minutes to just do this with ourselves. And it got to be something where over the summer, it was like, man, I want to keep running this workshop because of how much value it holds, but I got tired of running the workshop over and over and over again. So I created a video, but again, it's the 1.0. It's very rough. I would love to come up with a really good video. And ideally, I'd like to have it be one where multiple of you guys are engaged, not just me preaching. But I'd love to have something like that where it can be the programmer. It's like, oh, Johnny Rep, you're struggling with names? Boom, watch this video and then come in tomorrow with 100 names. You got this, son. Anyway, just an idea. Here's my closing thought on this, though, is that it really does start with your belief. The whole place that this came from for me was I had a rep that thought he was out of people to see, and he genuinely believed it. He was at $15,000 in sales, and he was a good rep. And he thought it was out of people. And I was like, dude, you're not out of people. And I allowed this to go on for 3 weeks. So I was like, dude, you're not out of people. You need to get more people. You're not out. And eventually I just got sick of it. And I was like, bro, stop coming in here without people. We're booking a powwow, right? And our powwow was getting him the names. But what we did really changed everything for me personally and him. And what I did is we sat down together. We came up with a brainstorm list just like this of how we were going to do it. And then we sat down together and brainstormed a list together. And at this point in my career, this was 2014. So I was in the ballpark of $170,000 in personal sales. I had started from scratch twice already, once when I was a baby rep and once when I came back to the business. And I felt like I didn't have a lot of people to see that I personally knew. Fortunately, I had enough referrals, I'd be fine. But I was like, you know what? This is an area of opportunity for me too. I'm going to get more people that I can see. So instead of just leading him through the exercise, I sat down and I did it myself too. And I came up with 3 pages in a notebook. It was in the ballpark of 75 names that I came up with that I could get numbers for and add to my call list. And I'll tell you, I did this in 2014. I've never called those people. In fact, most of them, I've never gotten their numbers because I don't need to. But it gave me so much conviction that if I was unable to sell Cutco as a district manager, if my only option was to be a sales rep again, I wouldn't be stuck. I wouldn't be out of people. I wouldn't have to rely on strangers and referrals and getting people to give me people or give me death. I was like, I've got hundreds, because if I came up with 75 people in one sitting, I could get more than that if I spent 6 or 7 hours on this like Will did, right? I've got hundreds of people that I personally know that I've never called that I could do appointments for. And because I believe that so firmly, that helps me help other people. Does that make sense? So I tell you that because it is important, not just for you, but the higher level you get yourself in any area, the better you're going to be able to lead people. The further down the path you'll be able to lead people. So when we do get to the winter break especially, we're going to do this workshop with you guys, and we're going to have you build up your list. And I just want you to realize it's not just for you. It is for your sales. It is to make you money. It is to get you to Jamaica for sure, because I'm going, and I need all of you guys with me because that'll be amazing. Also, last time I went to Mexico, I promised my entire team I would drink a shot of tequila with them. So in Jamaica, I will drink a shot of rum with you guys. You can hold me to that if that's something of interest to you. Most of my team at that point, by the time we got to Mexico, was like, I want to see this happen. So I'm just offering my body and its misery for your pleasure. That's fine. Anyway, should scrub that from the recording.
Agreed.
Should also scrub it from all of your brains. I apologize for everything. I'll drink a shot of rum with you guys if you want in Jamaica. Anyway. It's also for your leadership ability is what I was trying to say. I regret all of my decisions. Anyway, let me wrap things up with a few just closing thoughts. Number one is just a reminder that our next divisional prep, and you want to make sure you have this written down or in your calendar or something. It's in all the syllabi that we've given you, but just a reminder that our next divisional prep is going to be on December 19th. That is after you're all home from finals and before Christmas. And that's where we have everybody from the entire DC Metro division, regardless where they go to school. So that's a ton of fun. That one, the meeting itself will be from 11 to 5. And then immediately afterwards, we do our holiday party. We do a white elephant gift exchange. You get to meet Kate and her husband and her new baby. Super exciting. And we'll have a ton of fun there. So just to remind you, that is the date for the next one. Number 2 is that I would like to get a live powwow with all of you guys after your finals are done. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. We'll schedule a time closer to it. But until then, just a reminder, if you'd like to get a one-on-one call with me this week, or if you'd like to schedule a time to meet up in person this week, I am on board. But I am looking forward to getting some more in-person time with a lot of you guys in a couple weeks. It's not too much farther away. The next thing is the next savings checkpoint is a minimum of $750 by December 19th, and our top candidate should be at $1,500 plus. And some of you guys are already there and still making additions, which is great. And then last thing, I already said the last thing, so that was the last thing. I appreciate you guys. I'll stick around for a minute if you have any questions or need anything. Otherwise, I will follow up later on the text messages that you guys sent me. I appreciate you. Happy Thanksgiving, and I'll see most of you guys on Friday and or over the weekend.